I'm 72 years old. I have spent my entire life inside the human mind, other people's minds. I studied the patterns of thought that destroy people. I learned the language of grief, of trauma, of collapse. I sat across from thousands of patients, people who had lost themselves, and I helped them find their way back. I was good at it. I was very good at it. For over 4 decades, I carried the title Psychiatrist, the one who understands, the one who sees what others cannot see, the one who asks the right questions at the right time. People trusted me with their darkest thoughts, and I never once doubted my ability to handle my own. That was my first mistake. Not a small mistake, not the kind you laugh about later, the kind that follows you, the kind that sits quietly in the corner of every room you enter and waits. I thought because I understood the mind that I was somehow protected from it. I thought the knowledge was a shield. I was wrong. I'm 72 now, and I am only beginning to understand something I should have seen 40 years ago. Something I taught others to see. Something I wrote papers about. Something I explained to rooms full of medical students with complete confidence. I never applied it to myself, not once. And the years I lost because of that, I cannot get them back. I thought I had time. I always thought I had time. There is something deeply painful about being an expert in human suffering and still, quietly, slowly, privately, suffering in exactly the ways you warned others about. No one saw it, because I knew how to hide it better than anyone. That is the part that haunts me most. Not that I was broken. Everyone breaks at some point. But that I knew, I clinically, professionally, deeply knew, and I still looked away. If you are younger than me, and most of you are, I need you to hear what I am about to say. Not as a psychiatrist, as a 72-year-old man who spent a lifetime studying the mind and still lost years of his own life to the very thing he understood most. There is still time for you. There was not always time for me. I grew up believing that strength meant silence. My father was a quiet man, hard-working, disciplined. He never spoke about what he felt. He never complained. He came home every evening, sat at the same chair, ate his dinner, and went to bed. And the next morning he did it all again. I watched him and I thought, that is what a man looks like. That is what stability looks like. So I built myself in that image. I worked. I studied. I achieved. I moved forward, always forward. And I never stopped to ask myself how I was doing. Not really. Not honestly. By the time I was in my 30s, I had everything that looked like success from the outside. A respected career, a family, a home, colleagues who admired me, patients who needed me. I was needed, constantly needed, and I confused being needed with being fulfilled. That is a mistake that costs you decades if you are not careful. Every morning I would sit with a patient, someone drowning in anxiety, in depression, in confusion, and I would gently guide them toward the question they were avoiding. What are you really feeling beneath all of this? I asked that question 1,000 times. I never once asked it to myself. I would drive home after long days, exhausted in a way that sleep never fully fixed, and I would sit in my car for a few minutes before going inside, just sitting, just breathing. I told myself I was decompressing. I was not decompressing. I was hiding. There was something underneath the exhaustion that I did not want to look at, something I had been trained to identify in others in under 10 minutes, and yet in myself I chose not to name it, because naming it would make it real. And if it was real, then what? Then I was like them. Then everything I had built, all the authority, all the expertise, all the careful distance I maintained between doctor and patient, would collapse. I could not allow that. So I kept moving. My children grew up while I was moving. My marriage changed quietly, slowly, as while I was moving. My own inner world darkened in small ways, almost invisible ways, while I was moving. And I kept telling myself the same thing. Later. I will deal with it later. Right now there is work to do. Later never came. It never does. The tragedy is not that I was busy. Many people are busy. The tragedy is that I knew it with clinical certainty that avoidance compounds, that the longer you look away from something painful, the larger it grows in the dark. I taught that. I believed it for other people. I had a patient once, a man in his late 40s, successful, controlled. He came to me because his body had started breaking down. Chest tightness, sleeplessness, a sense that something was deeply wrong even though nothing on paper explained it. Within 3 sessions, I found it. Decades of unexpressed grief, loss he had never processed, pain he had buried so efficiently that even he had forgotten it was there. I helped him, and I drove home that evening carrying the same thing inside me. I knew it, and I kept driving. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember that clearly. Not because Tuesday means anything, but because the mind holds on to strange details when everything else breaks open. I was at my desk, mid-morning, a normal day, patients scheduled, notes to write, calls to return, the ordinary machinery of a life built on routine. And then the phone rang. My wife. She did not call me during work hours. She knew better than to interrupt. That was one of our unspoken arrangements, one of many unspoken arrangements we had built over 40 years without ever discussing them. I answered. Her voice was different, not panicked, not dramatic, something quieter than that, something final. She said she needed to talk to me. Not later, not at dinner, now. I told her I had a patient in 20 minutes. She said, I know, but I need you to hear this before another day passes. She told me she was lonely, not in the way people say it casually. She was specific. She said she had been lonely for most of our marriage, that she had watched me give everything, every piece of patience, every ounce of presence, every careful word, to strangers. And she had waited. For years she had waited for the version of me that my patients received. That version never came home. I sat there holding the phone and I did not speak, because I knew she was right. Not the way a husband slowly realizing a hard truth knows something. The way a psychiatrist, trained to see these patterns, knew she was describing a textbook case of emotional unavailability. She was describing me, using the exact language I would have used, and something cracked open in that moment. Something I had kept sealed for 40 years with work and routine and forward motion and the comfortable lie that I was fine because I was functional. Functional is not fine. I know that. I have always known that. But I had used my own expertise to hide from myself in a way most people cannot. I had just enough knowledge to stay one step ahead of the truth, to rationalize, to reframe, to clinically justify my own avoidance. I was my own most difficult patient, and I had been completely unwilling to treat myself. That evening, I sat in my study for a long time, not reading, not working, just sitting with the full weight of what I had spent a lifetime building and what I had quietly, systematically lost in the process. My children were grown. My wife was sitting in the next room feeling like a stranger in her own marriage. And I, the man who had spent 40 years helping people reconnect with themselves, had not had an honest conversation with my own inner world in longer than I could remember. I thought about the patients I had discharged over the years, the ones who had done the hard work, who had sat in that chair and faced the things they were most afraid to face. They were braver than me. They had come to someone for help. I never did. I thought I was above needing help. That thought, that quiet, arrogant, deeply human thought, cost me more than I can calculate. Don't make my mistake. Whatever you are carrying right now, and you are carrying something, everyone is, do not wait for a Tuesday phone call to make it real. Do not wait until the person next to you has run out of patience. Do not wait until you are sitting alone in a room full of achievements, wondering how you missed the things that actually mattered. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Let me tell you what I got wrong. Not as a husband, not as a father, as a psychiatrist, as someone who spent 40 years studying the exact mechanisms of human suffering and still walked directly into every trap. I got wrong the most fundamental thing. I believed that understanding was the same as healing. It is not. Understanding is just the map. Healing is the journey. And you cannot take the journey by reading the map and convincing yourself you have already arrived. I had the most detailed map in the room. I could describe every path, every obstacle, every likely wrong turn. I could predict with reasonable accuracy where avoidance leads, where emotional suppression ends, where a life built entirely on function and achievement eventually arrives. I knew all of it, and I stood at the beginning of the journey for 40 years and never took a single step because knowing felt like doing. It does not feel that way anymore. Here is the truth I now carry with me every single day. Knowledge without application is just a very sophisticated form of denial. Read that again. Knowledge without application is just a very sophisticated form of denial. I use my expertise the way some people use alcohol, the way some people use work, the way some people use constant noise and distraction and busyness. I used it to avoid sitting with myself because I knew if I ever truly sat with myself, I would have to feel things I had decided long ago were too inconvenient to feel: grief, loneliness, fear, doubt. The very things my patients came to me carrying. I had them too, every single one. I just had better language for keeping them at a distance. This is what I want you to understand. The most dangerous lies are not the ones you tell to other people. They are the ones you tell yourself with enough sophistication that they sound like wisdom. I told myself I was protecting my family by working so hard. I was avoiding intimacy. I told myself I was strong because I never broke down. I was suppressing everything that needed to be expressed. I told myself my patients needed me too much for me to step away and focus on myself. I was hiding behind their pain because looking at my own was too frightening. Every excuse was intelligent. Every rationalization was coherent. Every reason I gave myself for not doing the inner work, I could have written it into a clinical paper and it would have sounded reasonable. But reasonable is not the same as true, and true is not the same as free. I was not free. I was a man in a very well-furnished prison, holding the key and choosing every morning to leave it on the table. Here is the universal lesson. It does not matter what you do for a living. It does not matter how much you know. It does not matter how composed you appear or how well you have managed to convince the world and yourself that everything is under control. If you are not honest with yourself about what you are feeling, you are losing time, not wasting time. Losing it. There is a difference. Wasted time you choose to spend on nothing. Lost time disappears while you are convinced you are doing something important. I lost time convinced I was doing something important. I thought I had time. I always thought I had time, and the years do not wait for you to be ready. They do not pause while you finish building your career or raising your children or reaching the next milestone. They move. Constantly, quietly, they move. And one day you look up and the person next to you is lonely, and your children are strangers you love but do not truly know. And you are sitting with a mind full of knowledge and a chest full of things you never said. And you realize understanding was never enough. It was never going to be enough. The only thing that was ever going to be enough was feeling it, facing it, saying it out loud to someone who mattered. I was wrong to believe otherwise. I was wrong for 40 years. Don't make my mistake. I want to talk to you directly now. Not to everyone. To you. The person watching this. The person who has stayed with me this long because something in this story feels familiar. You recognize something here. I know you do. Maybe it is the busyness, the constant forward motion, the way you have learned to stay one step ahead of the quiet moments because the quiet moments ask questions you are not ready to answer. Maybe it is the loneliness you carry inside a life that looks full from the outside. Maybe it is the relationship that has slowly cooled while you told yourself you would give it more attention soon, when things settle, when the pressure eases, when the right moment comes. Later, always later. I need you to hear this from a 72-year-old man who has sat with thousands of broken people and then spent decades being broken in private. Later is a lie, not a gentle lie, not a forgivable one, a costly one, the kind that takes things from you permanently. The kind that does not announce itself as it works. It just quietly removes what matters most while you are busy looking in a different direction. Your children will not be this age again. The person you love will not wait indefinitely. Your body will not stay silent forever. And you, the real you, beneath the titles and the responsibilities and the carefully maintained image of a person who has everything under control, will not keep surviving on postponement. Something in you is asking for attention right now, not tomorrow, right now. I know because something in you brought you here. To this video, to this story. People do not stumble into reflections they do not need. You are here because part of you already knows. The question is whether you will do what I did not do for 40 years. Whether you will stop, turn inward, and actually listen. I spent my career teaching people that self-awareness is not weakness. That asking for help is not failure. That sitting with discomfort is not collapse. It is the beginning of every real recovery I have ever witnessed. I believed it for them completely. I could not believe it for myself. That is the wound I carry into this final chapter of my life. Not the regret of the things I did, the regret of the presence I withheld, the conversations I postponed, the walls I maintained so expertly that the people closest to me eventually stopped trying to reach through them. I thought strength meant never needing anything. Strength is not that. Strength is sitting in front of someone you trust and saying, I am not okay, and I have not been okay for a long time, and I need help finding my way back. That is the sentence I could not say for 40 years. I can say it now. It is too late for some of what I lost. I have accepted that. Acceptance, as I have told many patients, is not giving up. It is the only honest starting point. But it is not too late for you. That is the only reason I am saying any of this. Not to perform pain, not to be seen, but because I know, with everything I have spent a lifetime learning, that somewhere in the people watching this, there is someone standing exactly where I stood at 35, at 45, at 55, capable, respected, quietly drowning, telling themselves they have time. You do not have as much time as you think. Nobody does. The life you are postponing is the only one you have. The people you are meaning to show up for are aging alongside you. The version of yourself you keep promising to become when things calm down, that version is waiting, has always been waiting. Will keep waiting until you decide that now is the only moment that has ever been real. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Later never came. Don't make my mistake.